For Victims and Villains, my name is Josh, and today I had the chance and the opportunity to sit down with writer-director Can Banfield to talk about his short film, How Was Your Weekend, which is currently making its way around the festival circuit, premiering this weekend at South by Southwest. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Well, first off, congratulations for having a short film like this premiere at such a large festival like South by Southwest.
Thank you, thank you. It's
So, go ahead.
exciting.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying thank you. It's been a whirlwind of excitement. It's awesome.
That's it's awesome, man. I think that's one of those festivals that, much like something like Cannes or TIFF or Fantasia. It's one of those film festivals that a lot of people or Sundance that really kind of go after. It's really sought out, so it's really cool to kind of have a film like yours um, get to kind of premiere.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so one of the things that this is like the best way that I can put what How Was Your Weekend is all about is this idea of kind of like if Office Space was a horror movie.
I love that.
And could you kind of talk about kind of coming up with this concept and how much of this is actually autobiographical?
Well, it's definitely personal. Yeah, the way that I guess the way that it all began was truly from a kernel of an idea, texting my producing partner because I was working in this office job because so far I've made $0 writing and directing, and I was in a very hyper turned on office environment, and it was like the tube lights were flaring, and I was getting my bearings, and it was like week one, and I'm like just whiplash of seeing all these people have these performative conversations. And of course, Monday morning was the one that really set me over the edge because I'm seeing all these people asking each other how was your weekend, but they don't actually care about your weekend. It's just part of like the morning ritual of showing I'm I'm a team player, I'm your coworker, I'm your friend. And seeing the way that everything could just completely like record scratch turn on a dime if you broke that rule from personal experience was just so incredibly fascinating and also horrifying because I had like a time when I had a bad weekend, and it was early on this job, and I thought someone genuinely wanted to, sit down and have a nice human conversation amongst all of the fakeness in the world. And
Sure.
I felt bad because this person was so excited Monday morning, asking how my weekend was, and when I kind of shared something a little bit deeper than just the good, how about yours? It's just blankness and looking kind of at eye contact with me, but like out through the back of my head onto the wall. And I just realized the lines between corporate polite and corporate sinister, I guess, are so impossible to distinguish. Everything hinges on just like a micro interaction, and all those little interactions that we go about in our daily lives, wherever our job is or our workplace, whether it's an office or not, they're actually a lot of tiny paper cuts of little bits of horror that we're all living through. And I just realized this is a concept that is so big. It's a short film that can be bigger than a short film. And what happens if one guy did not have a good weekend on Monday morning in the office and he had hell to pay for it? And
One
it's
of the
a spiral.
things one of the things that I really appreciate about this film is the psychology that comes from kind of processing a lack of empathy because throughout the very probably say about the first third of this short film, we really do follow our protagonist as he's trying to process the weekend and trying to process how many people really actually care. And so I think this film kind of showcases the lack of empathy we have as a society, and that with that as well, um, for those of us that are experiencing those days where we may not actually have a great day, or it might not be like, hey, we had a breakup or there was a death in the family or, something. The thing about processing that is that the world keeps spinning and you're kind of left, your world just kind of stands still. Can you kind of talk about juggling that from a visual perspective? Because that is something that is explored probably once we meet the Rachel Harris character halfway through this. And I think capturing that visually really adds a layer to this film.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it all kind of starts with the opening shot. It's like there was no other way to begin this journey with this guy, this roller coaster ride, without opening up on him trapped in some kind of box. There's some glass. We can kind of think that it's a car, but we're so tight on him. And then there's that reveal that oh yeah, he is in his car, and we're realizing like we're not looking at a commuter, we're looking at a prisoner who is being forced to turn on work mode so that we don't have to deal with that empathetic stuff that you're talking
Sure.
about. We can't do that. That's not safe for work. It's like the NSFW is different in our project because being the true unpredictable, nuanced human being in a very predictable setting is dangerous. And that opens up those doors to those human emotions like empathy that people are either lacking or are scared to access or are uncomfortable, or whatever the rule is that you have in your ecosystem that you live in your life. And it just happens to be in Stevens that of course the rules are very simple and very understandable. And give a lot of credit too to like our DP helping find the ways to create a lot of like isolation from the viewers gaze at Steven. I mean, there's those shots when he's walking down the hallway and we've got this like omniscient, almost just like sweeping camera behind him as he's trudging closer to the door. Every step is feeling like he's got weights in his shoes because every step closer he knows what's going to be happening when he opens that door, and you can just hear that office chatter tearing the door hinges off. And
Sure.
so finding the ways to be up in him and be up in this incredible expressive actor James Morosini at the right times to see him emote, and then stepping away from him and being a little bit more distant and kind of letting the office environment get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, so that by that that the act 3 of our short, when Rachel and James are going toe to toe and we're in there tight and it's claustrophobic and she's like a snake looking for like a jujitsu master looking for a way to take a leg and take whatever she can get and trying different personality types. I think that's like the mission statement that we had for the visuals, for the execution, for the performances, making Stephen be an analog for all of us that are in these situations where we might be in a moment that we really need some empathy, but we're not getting it, and we are getting just tightened and tightened and tightened and
Yeah.
tightened and we explode.
So you mentioned James Morosini, who is plays our lead protagonist, Stephen, and just a viewer recommendation that if you guys haven't seen his criminally underrated comedy, I Love My Dad,
Oh
go check
yeah,
it out. It's such a good movie. I got to see it towards the end of its festival run, and it was such a treat. So I grew
incredible.
up watching Patton Oswalt, so I was really excited to kind of get to see him kind of take on a different role. That is very different, but also Rachel Harris as well. Most people will know from obviously The Hangover. Can you kind of talk about working with these notable character actors to kind of bring the story to life?
Incredible. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more. A dream come true to that be my first experience, as a director that I will always compare every subsequent experience to have people so locked in, so skilled naturally, so collaborative. The chemical reaction between the two of them was exactly what I hoped and dreamed for. Watching them take it as far as possible is incredible. And what was so fun about working with James is that obviously because this is such a personal story, it's like he's the person that I wish I could be, and I put myself in front of the
Mm,
camera if I could do what he could do. So like it's the coolest thing ever to just have these thoughts of how I see things through my point of view when I'm writing suddenly be like actualized on screen by the way that he his performances are and the way that like he sees the world on camera. It's exactly the way that I see the world when I'm writing. And then to have Rachel come in, who is just this force of nature, so damn funny, so wicked, so good, so sharp, and is just like the most fun person ever to work with. They are both so different, but complemented each other so beautifully in that dangerous but beautiful chemical reaction between the two of them. And for me, I get chills when I see her come into his office in the scene. It's like, oh, we're locked in. This is about to be a totally different thing than I thought it was going to be, and it was a dream come true working with them. They're fantastic.
As a writer too, I talked about how this movie is this movie from a visual standpoint very atmospheric, kind of sucks you in. It's very relatable, but there are these notes of kind of comedy that's kind of woven in, but it's kind of this very dry type of humor. Can you kind of talk about, as a writer, kind of juggling some of those elements into something that is as thematically heavy as this, and also uh, having that kind of exist alongside the horror?
Well, I actually think that they're intrinsically linked. Like the the mundane humor is part of this entire premise, and the premise wouldn't exist without that kind of like comedic tonal voice baked into it. So it it just it made it all make sense, honestly. Like they're telling this story without that dash of super bleak, dry, dark humor. I don't think it would work because obviously the premise on its own is very comedic, and just having that going for you is already like already works. People already get that. It's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes me raise my eyebrow. And because of that, that opens the door that you're in. You're in based on that. So like then our job was to just execute it as scary as possible, knowing that the funny is baked into everything. Because we're dealing with someone who said his weekend was bad. He didn't like kill anybody at the office. We're dealing with people that are holding their own personalized coffee mugs in line at work. And some of those shots that we chose and that our editor found, it looks like they're holding like weapons, but it's a coffee mug. It's not violent, but it is. It's the violence lurking underneath everything. The way that the coffee, when it's coming out of the machine, has got some dark, bloody undertones. Like all of that just kind of it played off each other. That interplay was everything because the more relaxed someone is into some jokes and the relatability, then we pull the rug out from under them, and suddenly it's terrifying.
The last thing that I will say, and this has a lot, I think, with Severance also kind of existing now, to where the concept of that show feels like it influenced a little bit of this show, to where, especially the scene of, don't let your personal life bleed into your work life, and you have the blood kind of protruding from the ceiling. One of my favorite scenes in this entire thing. But I think one of the things that our publication does differently than a lot of others is we incorporate conversations around mental health and suicide prevention into stuff that the content we produce. And so my last question for you is going to be involved in, obviously the art of this filmmaking and the art of this storytelling. Do you find this was kind of therapeutic for you at all, to kind of maybe divorce yourself from this moment in your life?
Creation is survival, man. Yes, it is the greatest therapy in the entire world. I Writing is therapy. It's kind of how I came to trying to go down this insane career path that's very
Mm,
challenging in the first place.
sure.
It's the only thing that makes me feel normal and whole, to be quite honest with you. And so yes, it was the most therapeutic thing in the world. I wouldn't change anything about this process because a piece of me is now, you know, taken off and put onto that, and now that's good. Like I did that, and there's going to be more, and they're going to be in this same world, in this universe of emotional horror and very first person point of view thriller. But yes, I love that question because I think all the time about the fact that like if I didn't decide one day that I should try writing to have a therapeutic exercise and to get ideas down and find a way to like speak to some aura, that I'm trying to write towards, that audience that's in my mind while I'm writing. I don't know where I would be right now. I mean, I'm really happy to be here in Austin at South by Southwest
It's awesome.
showing people, because it's just extremely gratifying to be able to tell stories that are personal like this and have other people connect to them and relate to them. I mean, people that were in our extras, featured casting, not our leads. I mean, there were people that have never acted before but wanted to try something fun for themselves and like have their own personal problems that at with their workplace, and anxiety and depression. One wonderful woman that was in our short had just taken a leave of absence from her job for some mental health struggles, and she was like, I just wanted to do this for fun. I'm so glad you asked me. I'll do whatever you want.
It's
So we
awesome.
had this social experiment of people in an office in July in LA with the air conditioning off, and everyone's meeting each other for the first time, and everyone's asking each other, how is your weekend? And it was this awesome social experiment. And I think that I've loved talking about that casting process a lot, but it pertains to your question about mental health and all that, because people were bringing what they had with their personal life to this while the project is talking about it. And I feel like we built a really cool ecosystem over 2 days. I wish it was longer. I wish we were
It's
all
awesome.
together fast. So
Well, Cam, thank you for your time. The once again, the short is making its way right now around festival circuits, making its premiere at South by Southwest. The short is called "How Was Your Weekend?" So thank you for your time, and check out the short if you guys get a chance to.
thank you, Josh. It's been great meeting you.
Thanks, man.